because this was the pool of companies we analyze for the sake also of analyzing companies that sell similar groups of products, but they all share the similarities with you, that these are novel products. These can be more or less expensive products, or at least expensive in the views of people buying them, and need to overcome a lot of understanding and trust issues. So a lot of similarities with your own predicaments. So I'm going to share my screen, and I hope that nothing, kind of now falls apart in the process. And please interrupt me. I will try to keep a note on the chat, or just raise your hands, or please interrupt me if something is not clear. As I said, I will not have the chance to really go around the table systematically as I normally do, given the setup. Voila. Oh. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Lovely, thank you. Oh, that's a very vocal team. I like it. Thank you. Alors, somebody sent something on the chat. Yes, okay. Alors, so each module, we start each module with a quiz. So I will go through that quiz, and given that I don't have that device right now, I'm not too sure how we're gonna go about this, but basically, first question, which of these statements is true? And it's a very fundamental question. It sounds a bit far-fetched, but very important, right? There is two theories around there about why poor people are poor. The first one says that they are poor because they have very few opportunities to actually become rich, right? They have very few opportunities to invest into becoming better off and invest into their that would make them even wealthier or better off. And there is another theory that says that somehow poor people are surrounded by very lucrative opportunities that could make them better off, but somehow they fail to capture these opportunities. I know it's a very fundamental question, but I'm going to try to go around the table, given that we have no device today. Is there anyone who wants to tell me one or two and why? Please just speak. It's going to be, as I said, the setting is a bit unexpected. So Sangeeta voted one.
Yes, I vote for one, because there is simply no money for the bottom of the pyramid to invest in opportunities. Also, not the awareness. Yeah.
Okay. So there is the opportunities, but somehow they don't have the money and the awareness to kind of avail them. Anyone shares this opinion? With 30 participants online, I hope there is a second person ready to speak. Anyone for two? You need to unmute.
I'll go for one.
And who is this?
Alan Lungu.
Excellent. Okay. Anyone else for one? Alors, everyone seems to be for one. Is there anyone for two? Please speak up now.
I think it is one.
You think it's one? Okay. So it seems to be a consensus on one. Is there anyone in the room who thinks it's two? Two. Gift. Please speak up.
Yes, I go for two, because I believe that the reason why they're poor is because they're limited in terms of resources. So I'll go for two. If they had resources, they would have invested, and I'm sure they know how to invest, and they would have done better, but because they don't have, and that's one of the reasons why they are poor. So two fits well for me.
Okay, but somehow the way you describe it is a bit like one, right? You say perhaps they would have good, investment opportunities, but because they lack the money to invest into them, they just forego it. Anyone else wants to share their mind on these? I have often noticed that the higher the number of participants, the less people speak. It's just, I hope we will, for next time, we will be ready. I will put some kind of voting device in the chat, and everybody will have a chance to speak. Anyone who wants to add what was said until now, or everybody kind of is aligned with some of the thinking shared so far? Yes, no?
I think I'll still go for one.
Why?
Yeah, because we are looking at them, for example, if they have few resources they have, I believe if they have something, whether the resources are few, but if they can capitalize on it and know how to use those small resources they have, maybe it can make them to move from where they are to the next level. So others, they have few resources, but if they don't know how to do with those resources, they may not go to the next mile. Sure.
So lack of knowledge, lack of resources. Somebody voted 2, called user. I have no idea who that person is, but somebody called user voted 2. You want to share?
Is it okay to go for both?
Only if you agree, if you explain. That's just
Yes,
an answer to it depends, right? You're a consultant. You could be bored, like it depends.
The first one, I'll go for both, but then the explanation on the two would be the first one is that there are also people that are rich today, but then they've come from a very humble beginning, but then they did have the passion to make it, and they invested whatever they had, and also gave it their all, and then made it in life. Whereas the number two one is that even though there are a few investment opportunity out there, somebody would still make it.
So you're saying it depends a little bit the context, but also the personality and the drive of individual people.
Yes.
Anyone wants to speak? Yeah, thank you for sharing your mind on this. Essentially, you might think that what is this kind of metaphysic question? But it's very important, right? We all work here today to help people come out of poverty, right? Or help people, in your particular case, address shocks that might throw them in poverty due to healthcare events, right? And it's a fundamental question to ask yourself if, is it that the problem is the lack of product or opportunity, right? Or is it that it's there, but somehow they don't avail it, right? And it's a two different product, depending on your read to this question, then you will have a different approach. So I will kick this module about telling you about money. That it's actually all, when you think about it, even though, depending on your, perhaps the MFI people in the room will, it will resonate, but it's all about money. And let me tell you the story of Suraj. The gentleman on the image is actually Nigerian, but he works in Ghana. And his name is Suraj. And Suraj is actually, you're talking about these people who come from very humble beginnings, but then kind of raise up and, make a future for themselves. Suraj is one of these entrepreneurs. He is born in a very poor setting, but somehow he had this drive within him to become an entrepreneur. And he moved to the city and he became quite successful, but he never forgot the village where he came from. And one beautiful day, he came. It was already 10 years ago. One beautiful day, he came across improved cook stoves. I'm sure that you have all, heard of improved cook stoves. Most women today in Africa and in Asia cook on very unsophisticated cook stoves who use a lot of fuel and make a lot of smoke. And that's both from a health and, financial perspective, very damaging. And, like a decade ago or so, people have developed a simple technology to improve the efficiency of cook stoves. When Suraj saw them, I forgot where he saw them, he was like, oh, this is exactly what we need in my village, right? So he dismantles the cook stove, figures out how to, put it together, starts a small production line in his backyard, very entrepreneurial, and test it. He likes the product, smokes less, use less fuel. He loads something like 30 of them in his pickup, drives back home to his village, and shows it to the ladies, saying that this was really going to change their cooking. And he explains everything to the ladies, and he thinks he's gonna sell. It's gonna sell like hot buns, right? And guess what? After his little demonstration, explanation, he's asking the ladies in the village, is anyone interested in buying? The cook stove at the time, so a plain cook stove, so to give you a reference, a plain cook stove that you could buy at the market would cost $2-3. And Suraj cook stove, he priced it at $5-6. So roughly the double, right? Not very expensive, a few dollars, right? But he priced it the double. And he's asking the ladies, who wants my cook stove? And guess what? None of the ladies raised their hands. Suraj is a bit puzzled because his cook stove is really a good deal, right? It's really less smoke, less fuel, good for your health, good for your wallet. Still, no lady wants to buy it. Then Suraj, who is a very creative guy, proposes the following deal. He says, hey, I will buy now some ingredients to cook, a deal that everybody likes in the village, and we're gonna do some cooking class. We're gonna take two ladies. One is gonna bring the cook stove from home, and one is gonna use mine. And they're gonna both cook the same dish, right? But on different cook stove. And then everybody else is gonna try to enjoy the dish when it's finished. So Suraj goes all the way to kind of, make a live demo. The two ladies cook, takes roughly the same time, tastes the same way. But if you compare, the lady who used her cook stove used way more coal than the lady who used Suraj cook stove. So, you have a very visual representation of, how much coal you can save on a dish. Suraj, asks again, who wants to buy my cook stove? And guess what? There was only one lady agreeing to buy the cook stove. It's the one who tested it, the one, the one that cooked on the one of Suraj. The other ladies didn't want to buy the no cook stove. Suraj was really, really annoyed by that time, but he has a lot of grit. So he was not going to leave his village without having sold more cook stoves, right? So he comes up with his last idea, which is, and it's all true. And by the way, this story I take a lot of time to tell, but I think it's important. It's all true. He makes the following deal. He says, I'm going to leave 10 cook stoves behind for you to test. And I'm going to come back in 1 month to see what you say. Well, he takes a risk because, but at the same time, it's his village, so it's like, I can leave 10 cook stoves behind. He leaves he says, but only on one condition. Each time you save money on coal, you put it in a tin. He actually tells them, you use, empty milk. They use a lot of this condensed milk in Ghana. So you take a condensed milk and you put a tin. You make a hole and you put the money you saved on the coal in it. And I come back in 1 month. Fast forward, we back 1 month later. Suraj comes back in the village, and he's asking the ladies, "Are you happy?" And indeed, the ladies are happy. Less smoke, less coal, just as nice to cook on. The food tastes the same. No husband has complained. And then they opened the tins. And guess what? In the tins, there was already almost the full amount to pay for the cook stove. So there was a couple of dollars already accumulated as saving in the tin, right? So the payback, of the investment, the payback of the price of the cook stove was very fast. But actually the ladies were very surprised by seeing how much money, the little savings were accumulating too, and that actually very quickly they could, spare enough money to buy the cook stove. And then finally, when he asks who buys my cook stove, he manages to sell all 10 of them. Then Suraj was like, "Now it's okay, I'm good." They understood. It was a bit painful. It's going to be a long road to sell that stuff, but finally, they understood. And then, he's asking all the other ladies in the village, "Who else wants a cook stove? I can come back in a few weeks with the next batch." And there is, do you know what the ladies answer him? The ladies say, "Yes, but only if you give us the same deal. Only if you let us test it for 1 month. But then we will buy it, too." Suraj was quite annoyed, right? Because he was like, "Why do you need to make my life so complicated and the delivery so expensive when you know it's good for you?" Then he was like, "Okay, but I'm going to charge it more. Instead of so many dollars, I'm going to put a few dollars more, right? And because, I need to drive 2 times here, and I need to actually, it's essentially sale on credit, right? So I'm going to make it more expensive. You still want that deal, or you want a cheaper deal, and I sell it straight for cash for you?" And still most of the ladies say, no, we'll buy it on credit, even if it's more expensive. So just what does it tell us? I mean, I hope that this story resonates with some of you, because I think that many of us sometimes have great products and get very frustrated about the fact that despite a lot of demonstration, despite a lot of explanations, people don't buy, right? And you need to go really, really out of your way to get them to listen to you. And here I want to show you a slide about the economic benefits that you may create for users, and they still decide to forego them. So, believe it or not, improved cook stoves have a internal rate of return, so it's some kind of return on investment of 5,000%. Do you realize how much is 5,000%? Just imagine putting money on stocks and getting 5,000% back. It's just the most lucrative opportunity, one of the most lucrative opportunity on this planet, right? Irrigation pumps have a return on investment of 2,200%. Water purifiers, 400%, solar lanterns, 150%, and solar home system, 60%. Of course, in that ranking sounds lousy, but who has ever invested in something that has brought back 60% return? Very few. At least I have never managed that personally. And the payback is also relatively short. So it's not that you need to invest and you get, 10, 15% after, or 20% after 2, 3 years. The payback is less than a year in most cases. And the product lifetime is quite interesting. So I'm just, like when you see these numbers, you're like, how come these people don't get it? If I would have such an opportunity, I would not think a second, right? So how come they don't get it despite being surrounded by such opportunities? I see there's someone on the chat. Apologies, Sangeeta. So why do you think it's so? What is happening? Why is it that it's so hard to convince them when the deal is so sweet? Anyone? I want at least 3 answers.
Yes, one needs to be convinced about that the product works. When a poor household invests in something, they need to know uh, that this is a sure product for their well-being uh, in future. So they invest very intelligently because the resources are very frugal at their end. So they will put money on something which is they are very sure of. That is why uh, this was so very difficult. But when they buy with the same deal because they have to put money not only because they themselves are convinced, but they need to convince their husbands, their families also, because they all are affected by her investment into something. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. A second opinion? Somebody who hasn't spoken until now.
Yeah, maybe the cost benefit analysis is not very clear in the beginning to them, Jessica.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they don't do basic math in the head, right? So I think the fact that Suraj helped them actually see how much money they would save rather than ask them do the math, I think that was helpful because all of them were surprised about the amount of money accumulated. Yeah. Anyone else?
So maybe a very typical case of most of the services, primarily products as well, which we sell in rural India, or sorry, in rural space in the developing countries, because it is more about enabling the affordability of that particular product or a service by demonstrating that this is how much you save. So if you keep adding up that money, subsequently the product usage becomes higher. And this has been practiced in many successful cases where the product has been demonstrated, it has been liked, but then the hitch to pay upfrontly and to see the value coming out of that particular product over an horizon of a period has not gone deep into the thought processes of the buyers, in this case, economically weaker section. And once that mechanism to pay was created, and that's where the eureka moment came for majority of them. And we pass through such situations almost on a regular basis. And we keep on finding out various ways to convince them, to offer them, and so that they can generate trials. In this case, apart from financing, the product was also left so that the trials are there and the usage can be felt at a larger way.
Yeah, excellent 3 answers. Thank you for being such a brilliant group. I think the 3 answers covered pretty much all, right? The first one is like trust. Need to be 100%, 300% sure it's going to work and it's good for them, and that product is going to work for them, not just any stove in the truck, but they want to try the stove that is going to end up in their house, because who knows whether the stove that is in the truck, whether it's not broken or has a problem, right? So it needs to be convinced, trust, the first answer. Second answer is that poor people are very bad at mental math for some reason. And they kind of fail to really, see how much it adds up to. And third answer is, ability to pay. So it's not a question of affordability, because I think the Suraj knew very well that these ladies could find that money, right? But then there is, the availability of cash at hand. And sometimes finding, offering financing solutions so that, you overcome these, cash at hand problem is also very important. So thank you for your 3 answers. And we're gonna go to the next question, which you already started kind of alluding to, which is, and here, please, I want to have 4 people answering, so be ready. Really not the same. So, out of these 4 answers, which do you think is the most true? Which do you think applies most of the time? So the main reason why poor people do not kind of avail these products, the main reason out there, the main reason why we don't see, despite being surrounded by very innovative, life-changing products, you have no idea how many incredible products are being invented and deployed every day, still not penetrating some segments. And so reason number 1, they don't know, right? Lack of awareness. Reason number 2, they do not understand very well the benefits, right? It sounds too theoretical, too abstract. Reason number 3, they do not trust that it will work for them, specifically for them, or because they have been kind of cheated so many times. And 4, they cannot afford it. Right? So you can choose only one. You need to think about the most prominent one. I know they're all important, but if there is only one that you should need to focus on to unlock sales, which one would it be? Which one is the most powerful to unlock sales? Alors, I have 4 people who answered in the chat. I like that. So we have a very nice spread. We have 2, 3, 3, 4, 2. So people are, anyone else wants to keep voting? Oh, 1. Okay, now we're getting an even bigger spread. Any more votes? So we have 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, and 1, 4. 2, 4 now. So we're getting really a nice, very nice spread. I like that. I like that. Very 2. Okay. So we're having 3. So okay, there's a convergence between slow convergence between 2 and 3. Okay. The others, feel free to vote. It's very interesting for me to see where your thinking lies, and it's very interesting to see that you disagree about this. Which is quite important because it's at the core of how you sell, right? Depending on what you believe is the biggest bottleneck, your sales and marketing intervention will be quite different. Okay, so there's a lot of people who chose 2 and 3. Who wants to blessings or Niraj or user? Anyone wants to explain his vote? I want somebody to explain their own vote for each of the numbers.
Yeah, I chose 2 because despite a product being affordable, that people buy because it gives the benefits that those particular people want. Yes, that's why I chose 2.
Okay, thank you. Anyone who wants to explain 1, 3, or 4?
For me, basically the reason why I've selected 4 is, even though these people, they know the good of the product, but most of the durable product, they are expensive. While the product which are not durable, they are kind cheap, and most people, they will go for those cheap products because they can afford them. But for the durable one, they are expensive, and that's why they cannot, they are not able to buy.
Okay, good. Anyone want to explain? Somebody raised the.
So on number 3. So basically, you find that you have buy-in of the product, so they really like the product. You have explained the benefits. They seem quite amazed about the benefits. But I think what remains is them to really trust that the stated benefits will actually yield them positive results. So basically, in the case of storage, what he did was to demonstrate, how the benefits come into practical reality. So sometimes we need to take a step further to demonstrate that these are the benefits, how the benefits look in real life. So basically, with that done, you find that you have actually created the barrier that prevented them from actually activating the purchase.
Excellent answer. Anyone who wants one? Somebody voted one.
Yeah, I did. So essentially, the reason for the one was that, so firstly, somebody needs to know about the product, and once you know, then you can still market it. You can talk about the benefits. You can talk about how is it going to, bring in trust and everything. But the first step of availability and knowledge of the product is necessary to start to do anything else that you want to build on top of it.
That's very true. That's very true. I mean, all these are important, right? My question is which one you should focus on to really unlock sales. Right? You need somehow a budget to make them aware and explain. But where do you put the emphasis? Where do you put all the efforts? Where you have a limited marketing and sales budget. So my question is like, how should you split it? Where should you put the emphasis?
It should be on the benefits, number 2.
Number 2, right?
Yeah.
Number 2. Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. So we actually did the math for you, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you some research again that kind of tries to bring some light into this very important question, because sometimes people do a bit of everything, right? But they do not know where the emphasis should be, or sometimes they don't even know where they put the emphasis. Actually, do you just ask yourself, as an organization, do you know how to split your marketing and sales budget? How you are actually splitting your marketing and sales budget across these different steps? Or you don't know, and you're making some kind of implicit organic choices on this? Well, let me try to help you be more explicit and more intentional about how you divide and conquer. I'm going to give you another example because I think that examples speak best. By the way, durable goods is an expression. Sometimes it leads durable means 2 things in English. It means good quality, meaning made to last, right? And durable means also a durable good is a piece of equipment, right? So it's not a consumable good. It's a piece of equipment that is there, if you want, rather than a consumable. So a durable good is it's not, we don't say durable because we say quality made to last, but we say durable in sense as opposed to consumable. So I'm going to give you an example in South Asia now. We're going away from Africa. We're in Bangladesh. This is a company called Selco. Also quite an old company, one of these pioneers. I'm giving you some examples from some of these pioneer companies. So Selco was one of the first companies in South Asia that put its mission on bringing solar home panels to poor farmers in rural Bangladesh. And they were also at the beginning of the very curve when solar started making some time ago again, when solar started appearing, they started Selco to bring solar to poor farmers. And solar panels, tricky, right? Big affordability issue, right? Because we're talking about $200 at the time. I have no idea how much it costs now. But back then it was 200, 250 to have a solar panel that, you know, could light up a few things in your house. So big deal in terms of investment. So a problem of cash at hand, but also imagine back then, you know, I know it's difficult for us to imagine back then. Sometimes we imagine, you know, it feels so long time ago, but imagine first time back then, we had a product, you had to sell they had to sell a product that looks like a panel, and they tell you, you install it on your roof and you'll get light, right? Very difficult, eh? Difficult sales. You know, like, and what if it's broken, and what if it's bad weather, and what if it's monsoon, and, you know, what if? So lot of explanation, lot of persuasion, lot of demonstration, very slow sales. It was really, really hard for Selco at the beginning. And then a bit like Suraj, but very, very gritty entrepreneurs, they don't give up. And they come up with the following scheme. They tell people, forget about buying the panel. We're gonna come and install it on your roof. Technician is gonna come and install it. You're gonna pay us every month so much. So the price was announced, right? You're gonna pay us so much per month after having used it for 1 month, and you're gonna pay the technician because he's gonna come back to your dwelling, to your house every month to collect the payment and to check if the equipment is in order, and if there has been a problem, he will repair it, right? And then guess what? The sales really grew very rapidly. Right? People felt like, I got nothing to lose. If it doesn't work, I don't pay. And if it works, I pay something reasonable. Right? So, of course, but do you think it was cheap? Do you think the people got a very good deal? For sure they didn't. They got a much worse deal than if they had bought the 200 straight, right? The solar panel, the total cost, because don't forget, Selco embedded the price of credit, right? Because they were essentially selling so they embedded the cost of capital to sell on credit, right? And they embedded the service cost, because you have technicians who are touring the village 24/7, and these cost a lot of money. And they added the margin on top of that, right? Because still they need to grow and, you know, survive and make money. Still, people were buying like crazy. It was a much better, you know, deal to save money on the side and buy it straight. But still, people were buying like crazy. And I don't remember. I was telling you, you know, like, and actually, the answer to that is like, when you tell me the problem is the price, there were some people who chose option number 4, saying it's affordability. Well, the answer is that clients do not necessarily look for cheap products, but they look for risk-free solution, right? What does the 2 examples I gave you have in common? They reduce risk. They reduce risk dramatically. When you first approach these clients, they see only the risk. They see only the problem. They see only what if this happens, or what if this doesn't happen. What Suraj, or his company was named Toyola, what Toyola did and what Selco did, they didn't propose a product. They proposed the risk-free deal. 0 risk. Right? And people are actually ready to pay for that 0 risk. Pay sometimes much more expensive. Because, of course, it takes additional resources and complexity for you to deliver it risk-free to them. Still, people are more than happy to pay for that premium, right? Because in the end, they are sure that what they get works. Right? I'm going to try to give you another example about how people think about risk-free. If you have ever studied marketing at school, they will tell you always, never have only one product. Always have 2 or 3 on offer. And the reason why is that people need a comparison point. You will have a low price product, you will have a middle price product, and possibly you will have a high price product. If you sell only one low price product, it will not, you think that you have done the best, the cheapest of cheapest, and that is done. No, you will need to introduce the more expensive product. Can you hear me? I get a message that my connection is unstable. Okay, it seems it's gone. So I'm giving you the example of hydrologic. Hydrologic, we are in Asia, but now Southeast Asia. We're in Cambodia. Hydrologic, also one of pioneering companies doing water filters, right, for safe drinking water. And their top, the first product they launched was the kind of pink bucket that you can see on the screen on top, right? They had done their best, because people were telling them too expensive. They had done their best to make the cheapest water filter out there possibly invented on Earth, right? And they were struggling to sell it like crazy, right? And then after a while of really struggling to sell this incredibly good value, good quality, yet very cheap product, they introduced the second one, the fancy blue one. Fancy blue one costs about double, seriously. But efficacy is the same. What is inside, you don't get a better filter, right? You just get more fancy plastic. Cost double, you pay the plastic. And guess what? Immediately the second product beats the first one. 90%, more than 90% of people chose the second product, the more expensive one. You can explain them all what you want, that the pink one is as efficacious as the blue one. They will still go, and it's half cheaper. They will still go for the blue one. We're talking about poor people who have to be very mindful about the investments they make. Can somebody explain me in the room why this happens? One answer, only one answer. I gave the answer away already some time back. Somebody who has not spoken. Somebody who studied marketing at school. Somebody who has poor grandparents. No one, come on. I'm not going to the next one if nobody answers. Ah, yes. So Niraj, explain us. Niraj, you must be on mute.
Yeah, please. What did you ask? I'm sorry.
You wrote the answer.
Yes, I did.
Okay, explain us what you mean.
So it's not only about the pricing, it is also about the offerings and the features which are associated for the benefits of the product that someone has to use. And once that benefit is seen and the willingness to pay is there, in fact, it gets established. So the willingness to pay gets established with the benefits of the product. Now, even if I look at the case of Swaraj, he also did a very interesting thing, which probably I'm just slightly diverting into putting up one of the points, is that while he gave the product and he demonstrated and changed the behavior. So effectively, the trust, which is generally low among a section of people who are living in close proximity about the product usage or whether the product will deliver the quality for a long duration. But once you start describing the benefits of the product, at least I have seen that almost invariably you will find some or the other buyer for that product within that community. Once you are able to find one single buyer and after a specific period you have established a brand ambassador within that community, and his or her usage brings that trust among the villagers about the product, and therefore will anyone wants to buy a product which is long lasting, and hence the willingness to pay starts generating. So hence we have also seen in many cases it is not only about the most economical product, it is about the way it is perceived and the benefits which are associated with the product, or even whether it is a service.
Thank you, Niraj. Very good. So I think the answer is indeed twofold, right? But I think in this case, the answer really be, because the benefits are equal pretty much. In terms of healthcare and usability, the two products are very similar. The main reason why the blue product, despite being expensive, sold, 90% of the sales were with the blue product rather than the pink product, despite the blue being much more expensive, was a question of trust. In my language, we have a saying, it's not true. My grandfather used to tell me, because my grandfather was born in very humble circumstances. He was a farmer, and he saw actually three wars. But he was saying we are too poor to buy cheap. I think somebody also made that remark at the beginning. It's a very interesting statement, right? To say we are too poor to buy cheap, right? Well, there is that feeling, right? That if you buy something, you might as well buy quality, right? Because it's supposed to last. You don't have the money to buy another one next month, right? And so, given poor people, perhaps because there is no Google reviews about the product, poor people lack ratings, they lack referential, right? So what do they use as a product, as a proxy to assess the quality of a product? The price. And we all do that to some extent. Go to an electronics shop. You want to buy, a TV. You have the cheap model, you have the medium price model, and you have the expensive model. Right? Will you go for the cheapest? No. Somehow instinctively you're like, there must be a good reason why it's the cheapest. Right? So somehow instinctively we use price as a guidance for quality. Right? And quality is the proxy that people have for trust, right? If it's quality, I can trust this product. So somehow they trust the more expensive products more. Because somehow they think that if it's more expensive, it must be better. Even if it's not the case. Right? So they prefer to spend more money to buy that guarantee of quality, which they detect through the price. Actually, there is only one good way to sell. Besides of introducing a second product, there's another good way to boost your sales is to introduce a third product, right? If you have two products, people will systematically go for the more expensive normally. And if you have three products, people will go for the middle one. They feel it's best value. In the bottom example, we're still in Southeast Asia, we're in Cambodia. And it's a company doing latrines, right? And this is about perceived benefits, right? Also, sometimes it's good to acknowledge that the benefits that people see in your products are not the ones that you think are beneficial. It's actually it's a caveat that affects a lot of companies. When you sell latrines, right, you sell sanitation, you sell hygiene. People who sell latrines want people to be healthier, less diarrhea, less respiratory diseases. And when you do latrines, you know that the important part is the part under the ground. That needs to be solid. The part above the ground is important, but way less. However, to buyers, the part above the ground is way more important for tons of reasons. And even if it's more expensive, they will still go for a toilet where 95% of the investment goes above the ground instead of below the ground. So there's also a whole question about perceived benefits, which is not necessarily the real benefits. It's not necessarily what your product truly delivers. It's not necessarily what you tell them that your product delivers. It's the benefits that they perceive that will drive willingness to pay. So you need to be very good at understanding what are the perceived benefits of your product, not necessarily the actual ones. Okay, question number 3. This is a very nasty question given the people we got in the room. And I would like to have at least 10 people voting this time. The best way for a distributor to help clients finance the purchase of more expensive product, it's not the ones where they struggle to have the cash at hand, is option number 1. Work with the microfinance organization that might provide the microcredit solution. Answer number 2, find some grant money which can help you subsidize these products so you make them cheaper and more people will therefore buy because you bring the price down. Answer number 3, forget the microfinance organization. I'm sorry for the 7 people in the room. Forget the microfinance organization and sell directly on credit in-house. I would like the vote is open. I see people are voting. 1, 3, 3, 3, 3. Oh my God, 3. We have a lot of 3. I hope the 7 people are voting 1, right? Because more 3. 1 and 3. We have a lot of votes. It's not only Malawi who is voting 3, and we have also quite a few Indians voting 3. Ashish votes 1. Niraj votes 1. Everyone else votes 3. Everybody dislikes 2. I'm happy to hear. Okay, so Ashish, given that you're so lonely in this room, you're going to speak first. Why 1?
Yeah. So it will always be better for a distributor to work with a microfinance organization. Why? because microfinance organization or finance involves multiple operational things, and I think a distributor should always be focused on the product manufacturing and the distribution part, and the finance should always be a separate entity, and that can be because it also involves a lot of operational things like repayments, collection of the payments. So uh, I think work with the microfinance organization is the best solution for a distributor.
And what would be possible downsides of doing 3, according to you?
So whenever a distributor involves into offering financing in-house, that is possible, that is always possible, but it also requires a lot of operational things. I mean, you'll be requiring manpower centric thing, a lot of manpower to be deployed for financing and collecting of the repayments. So I think a distributor should always be focused on the distribution part, not to the financing part. Financing should always be a separate or outsourced thing.
Okay, thank you, Ashish. That's a very clear answer. Now, for all the people, I would like especially to have somebody from MIS, right? From all the people from MIS who decided to do 3, I would like you to defend 3, because I know that you have done both. Actually, you have become quite successful doing 1, right? I mean, you've scaled doing 1. As an organization, you have scaled doing 1, but I see almost all of you vote for 3. So I'm a bit, sounds a bit counterintuitive given how big you became thanks to 1, and you still believe in 3 most. So who wants to defend 3?
सबका तो हाँ अलग अलग होटल्स में है, लेकिन सरोवर तो शायद उसमें रूम्स नहीं होगा. ठीक है, मैं देख लेता हूँ कहाँ पर रूम अवेलेबल है. हाँ.
Am I allowed to speak?
Oh, everyone is allowed to speak. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So microfinance institutions are discouraged to do product bundling. That is what I have written in the chart. There is a misconception saying that the microfinance organizations do multiple operations. They some of them do. Some of them are tied up with the distribution agencies to distribute these products, but this is discouraged. Am I audible already?
Yes, you are. I'm trying to mute somebody who is speaking.
Yeah. So
okay.
So they are discouraged, but I'm okay saying that the financing part. So whoever is buying a product, that is not the criteria that microfinance organizations actually go by. They actually select their clients. They select their clients on their own way. No, there is a process through which they can select their clients, who to finance, who to give the loan to. So they do not actually, they are not the best organizations or best medium through which this product distribution can be done. But if the client comes in asking for a product, then they can arrange this distribution. They can arrange this distribution, which is not many, because the product that innovative products that we are speaking about, like the solar lantern, the cooking stoves, all the products that you just have displayed, those products. The first thing that we have discussed is the people should know the benefits, the risks that has been reduced, and this is not the responsibility of the microfinance institutions to explain all this to the clients. So they are not the best to distribute this product. Of course, I understand that people think that because microfinance organizations work in very remote areas, they reach out. Their reach out is very huge. That is why people may think that they are the best organizations where these products can be distributed. But first, we need to have the awareness, which needs other kind of expertise and their operation also to explain this to the client before selling. So that is why I have chosen 3. Sell the product directly on credit by offering. You may have this arrangement with a microfinance organization that that these client of yours, if they buy something, which actually some of the microfinance organizations do, they actually tie up with the distribution agencies who sell the product to the microfinance institutions clients who are already the clients. But if even if microfinance has grown very huge in India, still it is just 3 or 4% of the entire population. So if you are opening up to the entire market, then microfinance still has not reached more than 3% of the population, you can say. So it is still growing, it can still do, but our central bank has regulations which actually is very strict about product bundling. And whenever we go for visits or we see that there is no product bundling is being done, and the client is actually expressing a need which is not so, which is not there. If no, the process has to be from bottom up. So how will you make the client to go and ask for a particular product if the client doesn't know? Which means the distribution agency or the marketer, whoever, they have to go to the client first, sell the product directly to the client, and the on credit is the secondary thing. First you have to explain the product to the clients, right? So for that you have to reach out to the client first, and on credit is a second process, and to tie up with the microfinance organization is a third process. Taking the consent of the microfinance client is another process. So these are processes because of which you cannot yeah. So that that is my take.
It's the best answer I've listened to, I think, during all my whole time giving this training. Thank you very much. And anyone wants to add to that? Anyone from the MISC?
Yeah, okay.
Or any other team? Sorry, I don't want to exclude anyone.
Okay, for me, I just feel like it depends. The distributor has to access the people he's selling to, depending on the needs and circumstances of the clients. Because if the clients can afford to pay on installments, then that's the good way to go. But if he feels like the customers will be able to pay on credit, that's when you can look for the other solutions like partnering with other financial institutions. So it all depends on the needs and the circumstances of your clients and the nature of the products that are sold.
Okay, but in this case, it's a product that tends to be too expensive for people to buy in one go. So in this case, what would be best? To try to raise a line of credit in-house and do it in-house, or is it best to partner with organizations that can provide it?
Yeah, if it's too expensive, I think you can just offer it on credit terms. Yeah.
Gift, any thoughts? Hello? Gift, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here. Robert is trying to speak, so I think I'll let him speak first.
Okay. Then Robert? I'm sorry, there's people raising hands. I'm not seeing that. Robert, you may be on mute, that's why we don't hear you.
How about that?
Yes.
Yes, I for one would have gone for one, but I think the obvious challenge with partnering with an MFI is that it makes the product even much more expensive because of the interest involved. However, the idea of going for the option number 3 is an issue of liquidity. Yeah, if the institution is liquid enough to offer or to sell the product directly on credit to the customers, then I would fully support number 3. But if the liquidity is an issue, then we have no choice but to go for number 1.
Okay, so I'm spending a bit of time here because I mean the whole Southern Middle Class Partnership relies on this idea of partnering with MFI. So I wanted to unpack a bit more this topic, and also because a lot of the time when the product is a bit pricey, offering a financing solution, right? Some ways to facilitate the purchase from a financial standpoint is very important. And here I'm going to give you the last example for today.
Jesse, before you move to the next, I had a contribution. So previous slide, please.
Yes, go for it. Sorry to skip you. Sorry.
All right. I think I would go for one. The reason is people trust microfinance organizations, unlike other sources of product distribution. Now, I'm referring this from a point where I'm standing. We do sell service, and it's difficult for you to offer service on credit because most of the times there's nothing tangible. For instance, if I sell a policy, a life insurance policy on credit, what it means is if the year passes without any of the event that they were insured for happening, they'll feel like even if they had not bought, then the situation could still be the same. So it becomes difficult to collect from the people that you offered your service on credit. The reason why people trust microfinance organization is that oftentimes these organizations advance their finances to people that ordinarily maybe could not get money from commercial banks. And because of that, the trust is seen to have started with the microfinance organizations trusting their customers, giving them money on the understanding that one day they will pay back. So any product that you distribute through that channel, people trust it much because they've trusted the financial institutions before probably they had trusted your product. One of the reasons why insurance is difficult to sell is because of the trust. So MFIs or microfinance organizations bring on board that trust element. Thank you.
Thank you, Giv. That's an interesting angle to it. That one is quite important, right? They have this access and working relationship with people, which has kind of already, is a good layer for the trust. Whether you can really leverage that trust for your product, I'm not too sure. They trust the organization, whether they trust the product that this organization may or may not finance, I'm not sure. But I think the trust element is very important. I'm going to give you an example of a company who decided not to go with microfinance. I'm trying to, the whole point of this training is to encourage you to think a little bit out of the box, because inside the box will not work. So I'm trying to give you examples of organizations that went a bit outside of the box, right? In the way they have been solving some of these problems and successfully so. And so I'm going to bring you to Latin America now, rather Central America or Northern America, because we are in Mexico. And this is a case about a multinational, so it's no more, an early stage startup. It's Cemex. Cemex is one of the world's biggest companies. Actually, its owner is one of the world's richest people. They do cement, as the name suggests. And long story short, but cement is an extremely cyclical industry, right? If you find insurance hard, if you find microfinance hard, you will find cement hard because extremely cyclical. It's an industry that makes a lot of money for 7 years and then loses a lot of money for 7 years. It's really a huge roller coaster for different reasons, which I'm not explaining today. But the problem is that when you're in a down cycle, it's really, your company is very vulnerable when you sell cement. And so Cemex was the story started when Cemex was in a down cycle. They were losing a lot of money for a couple of years. And they were doing a lot of market research, and they realized that the only market which is resilient in a down cycle, where they keep selling, even though, the market is going south in all other cases, is poor people. Poor people buy cement every year, stable. Why? Because poor people build out of necessity and not out of opportunity. So while the majority of the construction business is driven by opportunity, people living in low-income neighborhoods build by necessity. And that's why the only markets were in Latin America, where the only places where sales were strong in a downturn, even when it's actually they were the slums. That was they called them the barrios in Latin America. Really, the informal settlements. And so Cemex is like, okay, now we need to start to sell to these people. It's going to be the focus for the coming 3 years. And guess what? First bright idea, they want to copy Unilever. I think this is something that is very prevalent now everywhere, and perhaps you didn't understand, people don't remember how much of an innovation it was then, but Unilever invented the sachet, right? Before Unilever, when people were selling shampoo to poor people, they were selling them big bottles, right? Because they were saying a big bottle is cheaper for you. You get more value with your shampoo. And Unilever was like, no, we're going to sell them sachet, per use sachet, right? So now it's the standard, right? You can find in all these kiosks, you find the sachets. You don't find the big bottles no more. Well, it's Unilever who invented the sachet. Oh, it's terrible for the planet, for the quantity of packaging and plastic. But Unilever invented the sachet, and everybody copied them, right? And Cemex wanted to copy Unilever. They were like, they made this very superficial assessment saying, poor people, they don't have cars and they don't have money. And so instead of selling them 50 kilo bags, we're going to sell them 10 kilo bags. Easier to transport and comparatively cheaper to buy. Of course, it's more expensive per kilo, but in terms of cash out, it's less. And guess what? Their 10 kilo bags was a total fiasco. Nobody was buying 10 kilo bags, right? I can imagine, why would you buy 10 kilo bags when you need a 50 kilo bag anyway to build a house? And so, like the whole 10 kilo bag fiasco. They then, try to partner, because to build back then in Mexico, to build a 10 square meter room, whatever you do, but the 10 square meter space or house, it would cost you about $1,000. So quite expensive, right? And so second best thing they test is trying to partner with a microfinance organization or credit organization to offer the financing. To offer the financing, and very complicated, doesn't work for a lot of reasons that you already mentioned, but the microfinance institution would really struggle in giving the credit because, these properties were, it was mostly, the paperwork was not in clean. They could not show that they were the owners of the land. These people did not have any formal jobs, right? So they could not prove, income. Very, very complicated. Hardly any loan given. So CEMEX, after his second attempt, failed attempt, actually they do something quite unusual. They send a team to live in these areas, in these slums, in these settlements, for a few months. I think it was even 6 months. They'll send a whole team living in these places for 6 months so that they can actually experience, not only assume what it is like, right? But actually experience and witness what is happening, why people decide to build, how do they go about it, what is the issues that they encounter in the process, how do they solve for these problems, etc. So really to gain a very deep market understanding of how to actually, what these people actually need. And what these people came back to was a lot of learnings. But what they realized is that people don't need cement bags, they need a solution. Because when poor people build, it's a nightmare. The nightmare is endless. Basically, what they found out is that when these people were building, they would spend about 3 times more than what it should cost because of tons of reasons, right? But it would be like, wrong material getting wasted or stolen because it's left outside, material bought in the wrong order, not the right sizes and requirements, an incredible amount of wastage, incredible. So instead of 1,000, they pay 3,000. They also need to, borrow the cash and all. Incredible. They take 5 years. What should take, 6 months to 1 year, takes them 5 years to complete. Because again, tons of reasons. Wrong material, no transport, and no time, bad weather, no workers, no help. What is what should not take more than 1 year takes them 5 years. And last but not least, it's a major cause of divorce, right? Because endless fights about this room or this house never being built, about so much money wasted, not only between the couple and the family, but also with the neighbors, right? Endless fights with all the neighbors who complain about this mess and the storing and the material and all of the noise and all, and you taking all the water and you name it. It's a nightmare. In this context, you understand that replacing the 50-kilo bag with a 10-kilo bag is not gonna change anything. In this context, you're understanding that telling them, oh, you need to go now to run, on your head to try to get the credit with that finance institutions that doesn't want to give it to you anyways, is not gonna change anything. They completely rethought they stopped thinking about their product, and this is what I'm gonna leave you today with. Stop thinking about your product. Start thinking about the problem. What problem are you solving for? And what is your value proposition? How can you adapt your value proposition to actually tangibly solve for these problems for the users? So completely forgot about your product. completely forgot about your tech, completely forgot about your really smart design and features and product description. Start again with the customer. Not only the customer, but the headache of the customer. Because as long as you do not solve somebody's headache and your value, you cannot really then develop and communicate a value proposition that will resonate with them. It's a very important learning. And you will not begin to imagine what Cemex did based on these findings. Instead of, with these findings, they were like, what do we do now to sell our cement? What do we do to solve these problems? Well, they designed a product that had nothing to do with cement anymore. It had all to do with service. The deal was the following. The deal was a complete package. They were saying, we're going to set up a membership club. To be in this membership club, you need to pay 250 pesos. Sorry, that's Mexican currency. You need to pay 250 pesos per week. 250 pesos is not cheap, but it's doing the market research. It's a sum that people could set aside every week, right? So it was a reasonable sum to ask for these people who had, daily jobs. Well, it was not farmers, right? But these people had daily informal jobs, and they could kind of set this money aside. 250 pesos for 72 weeks. So roughly 1 year and a half. You cannot miss a payment, right? But you need to, and we will take care of all the rest for you. As long as you're a member, we make you a promise. We make you the promise that after these 72 weeks, you will have that 10 square meter done at no other cost. It's all included in your membership fee, right? You will be able to design. You will have people to help you design what you need. These people then will translate the plans into bill of materials, right? They will help you figure out, okay, that means that you will need to build, buy so much of this and so much of that. They will arrange, we will arrange for you the purchase of quality materials. We will arrange for you the delivery of these materials at the doorstep in the order and quantity you need, right? And that's it, right? So people were not asked to find the money. People were not asked to figure out how to build, with what materials to build, how to build. Cemex just sold them a membership through which they took care of everything, literally, right? At the end, the only thing that was required from the customers was to pay 250 pesos every week for 72 weeks. If they could deliver that, they would get a house or a room at the end. Now I find this example mind-boggling, how a multinational company decided to go so far, who are not necessarily very agile, right? Decided to go so far from their original business model to actually solve a client need. Now, you might wonder how this thing was working and whether this thing was working. I can tell you that they actually created a separate entity called Patrimonio Hoy, it's written there, to actually run this business. I can tell you that Patrimonio Hoy is, and remain the fastest growing and most profitable and most cash positive operation within the Cemex group. It's a gold mine. And Cemex was already a very profitable organization. So Patrimonio Hoy became a gold mine. And you might wonder, but How is this possible? You know, and they had some kind of and there was just something I forgot. There was a very harsh condition, right? In case, I mean, people need to pay. We don't care where you find the money, if you need to steal it or whatever. If you miss one payment, there was zero tolerance for non-payments. Zero. If you miss a payment, you're out of the club forever. Forever. And you forego all possible future benefits. They had a 99% compliance. People found the money. Despite the shocks, despite the problems, despite all what you want, 99% payment compliance. And you might be wondering, how did they make money? Well, they made a lot of money because actually the price of all these extra services and the price of the credit, because technically they were doing credit, was all factored in. Hefty margin. It required them to set up a completely different operation, right? Way more complex than just, distributing cement bags. But they factored in all the cost of those services plus the cost of credit, but they spread it over 72 weeks in 2 bites that people could, handle. They didn't, it was refinanced from their own balance sheet, and it might be complicated. You might be wondering, yeah, but where do they find the money? Like somebody was mentioning about liquidity. Do you have enough liquidity in-house to do this? Because it's the biggest bottleneck to do it in-house, right? Where do you find the cash? They didn't have to. Why? They were super smart. They first asked for people to make, I forgot if it was 5 or 7 payments. People had to pay the membership fee for 5 to 7 weeks without getting any material. So there was some kind of, we will start delivering the material to you only after you paid a little while. And then what they were always very conscious about is that the value of the material delivered was never higher than how much the people had paid. Meaning at no point they were doing credit. At no point they were fronting the material. They always made the math to ensure that the value of the materials delivered was less than the payments made. So they were taking zero risk either. And they didn't have to refinance anything. Actually, the whole operation was cash flow positive at any point of time. So, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to give you your assignments, but I want you to think about, to realize that even when you're selling, even when you are dealing with a very difficult market, even when your product is very complicated to sell due to tons of reasons, even when your product is extremely expensive, because $1,000 is expensive, right? Even when your product is very pricey, you can find a workaround. But the workaround requires you to think completely out of the box. It requires you to forget about all the things, the textbook answer, the instinctive answers, the preconceived notions about what people need or want or what are they ready to do. It really requires to completely rethink and start from the problem. What problem do these people truly have? How do they struggle when they access healthcare or need to access healthcare? And how can you remove that headache for them? Too many times I see people trying to fit a square into a circle. Oh, we need to change slightly the shape of the circle, or we need to make the square bigger. And they always start from their product. The main mistake is that people always start from the product and they're like, oh, but people don't buy it because they don't know it. Then they invest a lot into awareness. Then second, they're like, oh, but people don't buy it because they don't understand it. So they spend a lot of money on explanations. Oh, but people don't buy it because they don't trust my product, you know. Then they spend a lot of time on proximity, on, you know, having ambassadors, and all these things are important. I'm not saying that they are unnecessary. But you always start with your product. Have you ever started from the problem and kind of redesign your offering, your value proposition, starting from there? I know it sounds completely crazy, like it probably, you know, was very annoying for Cemex not to be able to sell bags straight away because good quality cement, right, in which they had invested a lot of infrastructure to produce. But I'm just saying, you need to take a step back and rethink, because as long as the fit is not there, you will spend a lot of money on marketing and sales and you will not sell. Right? So I'm asking you to take these various examples, the ones of the cook stove. Remember Suraj, who worked on trust. Remember the one of Selco, who worked on risk. And remember the one of Patrimonio Hoy, of Cemex, who worked on, you know, the problem and the financial solution out of the box. I want you to take these 3 examples back home, and I will give you 2 assignments for next time. To little bit reflect on what does it mean for how you do things today and for the products you have today and how you package them and your value proposition and how you actually communicate it. And I understand these are big groups and possibly these are, at least perhaps for, I'm not too sure for Salam or for MetaPlus, but these are perhaps big groups of people who may not work in the same office or something. Find a way to kind of organize, you know, organize something. I would like at least each organization to come up with some answers to the assignment. For next time, you will have, you know, 5 minutes each to present. And basically, the 2 assignments I have for you, sorry, I need to go somewhere else to find them. Give me a second. Oh my God. Alors, the first question, the first assignment the first question you need to answer is the following. I will send an email to everybody after the call is ended, but just for me to walk you through the question, and then you will need to find somebody in the lead of your organization to kind of organize the discussions to prepare for next time. The first question is like, what economic value do you help create for you end users or the customers? Do you have any idea of whether you help them become poorer or richer? And if you help them become richer, do you have any idea of how much richer they are? How can you compute that economic benefit? Right? Because without creating an economic benefit for the end users, if you make your user poorer, it sounds a bit silly, but you will be surprised. If you make your end users poorer, your product is not going to work. So how do you create today economic value, and do you know which economic value and how much you create? Second question, second assignment. Assuming that you create economic value for your users, right? How would you communicate it to them to be sure that they understand, that they believe and trust that what you're telling them is true? And you can, again, in your answers, you can be as wild as you want. Like you can, talk about an idea that you have not tested it, right? We can talk about something totally impractical. We're not looking at practicality. I'm trying to get you to think about how could we do things differently. Okay, third question. If customers want a risk-free, holistic solution to their problems, right? Risk-free solution, not your product, a risk-free, holistic solution to their problem. If that is what they want, what does it mean for your own product and service? What could you add, change, or to turn your product or your service into a risk-free, meaningful value proposition? And try to find again as many ideas as possible. I don't need, like you can just go like SMS, go with a completely wild shot. I don't care. But just try to find some ideas. Is the assignment clear? Oh, we have 3 people. Okay, sorry. So these are the 3 questions. I cannot speak and do things at the same time. So you can have, to your question, yes, you can have 2 teams, but in the end, you will have only 1 person presenting. So this person will need to consolidate everyone's answer. Does it make sense? But you can have as many groups as you want, but in the end, you will need to have a spokesperson who speak on behalf of your organization. These are 3 questions. And please, I don't want 2 presentations done by 1 person, right? There needs to be 1 presentation for your organization that kind of consolidates all the ideas and suggestions. I copied the 3 questions in the chat here, but I will send them by email. Hopefully now I have got the list of participants right. Please shout if I missed somebody today. And that's it. I will send these questions by email. And now comes the time on when are we doing the next call? And I'm gonna make it, I'm sorry, because the training was organized so last minute. I'm gonna make a proposal now. So we are Wednesday morning. Would Wednesday, same time, on the 3rd of July, work for everyone? So Wednesday in 2 weeks, same time, same day, same time. I see Sangeeta. Thanks God there's Sangeeta, who is always, oh, Niraj, not for me. Niraj, I'm sure that, I mean, it's bound to happen, right? Among 30 people that somebody... Niraj, what works for you? Is it...
I might be traveling from 1st to 3rd. So, and that for some external meetings, which might make it not possible to attend. So then you guys go ahead. That's okay.
But we can do it slightly earlier or later if it works for you.
I'll just keep on pulling up myself from my colleagues.
But we don't want to miss you. Siraj,